Welcome back to my channel. My name is Beth and this is Best Bookish Reviews. I'm here today to bring my March TBR. I filmed this before, so I already have the unwrapping of my 6 books, and so I will include that when I get closer to it. So let's start with what I'll be reading for my DIY literature degree that I have set for myself. This novel, this classic, is going to be my core book. So for the majority of the semester, I will be reading it. This is a new semester. I'm starting a new semester. I figured that I had read enough that I could start a new semester. But anyway, and I just set the ones that I hadn't read back to the side because I just needed something fresh. And so I'm not done with those. I'm just putting them on hold. And I will be back to them. But this one is my core novel, and I will be reading several books alongside of this. But it is Middlemarch by George Eliot. I just love the look of this book. I did read a couple of pages last night. It says, it is a complex tale of idealism, disillusion, profligacy, loyalty, and frustrated love. This penetrating analysis of the life of an English provincial town is set during the time of social unrest prior to the first Reform Bill of 1832. It is told through the lives of Dorothea Brooke and Dr. Tertius Lydgate. I guess, I don't really know how you say his name. And includes a host of other paradigm characters who illuminate the condition of English life in the mid-19th century. So this will be my first, well, no, because I read Silas Marner, so, but it is chunky and I do not expect to finish it in March. But then the first one I will be reading alongside of it is an author I'm revisiting again. Not that I loved his book that I read. In fact, I've read a couple of his books and I've loved them both. But I will be reading The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. This is one of my companion novels. And it says, ruthless greed, relentless self-promotion, corporate swindlers, and scandals on a grand scale. Indeed, this sounds like the way we live now. This in quotation marks. Though Anthony Trollope's title actually refers to the 1870s England, his scathing satire of a money-mad culture cuts close to the contemporary bone. At its center stands Augustus Melmotte, a crooked financier whose enormous schemes ensnare an array of avaricious aristocrats, politicians, and important people. Among them are Lady Carberry, who earns the family bread by churning out fatuous pot boilers, and her spendthrift ne'er-do-well son Felix, who sets his sights on Melmotte's dangerously beautiful daughter Marie. And I'm gonna stop there. I don't want to give anything away, and I don't know if it does, but you know, I'm not upset about the font. It's pretty easy to read font, and I like the way Trollope writes. So I have those two to start with, and I will be including in this reading a nonfiction book, and that is the How to Read a Book by Mortimer J. Adler and Charles Van Doren. And this is an older copy. Like, they have a fresh cover for this now. I think they've republished it. You are told about the various levels of reading and how to achieve them, from elementary reading through systemic skimming and inspectional reading to speed reading. You learn how to pigeonhole a book, x-ray it, extract the author's message, criticize. You are taught the different reading techniques for reading practical books, imaginative literature, plays, poetry, history, science, and mathematics, philosophy, and social science. So I just thought it would be good, because I am doing a DIY literature degree, to find out what they say about how to read a book. Also, I am doing another kind of, I guess you would call it curriculum, personal curriculum. I will be reading by Justo L. Gonzalez. I guess you pronounce that as an H. The Story of Christianity, Volume 1. The Early Church to the Dawn of Reformation. So I have started, I've read the introduction, which is titled 1. And the scripture above it says Luke 2:1. In those days a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be enrolled. And alongside of that, I will be reading St. Augustine Confessions. All right, let me tell you a little bit about the story of Christianity. It says, this is fully revised and updated, and he's called the lauded church historian. Justo Gonzalez tells the story of Christianity from its fragile infancy to its pervasive dominance at the dawn of the Protestant Reformation. I'm going to skip this. From Jesus' faithful apostles to the early reformist John Wycliffe, Gonzalez skillfully weaves details from the lives of prominent figures, tracing core theological issues and developments within the various traditions of the church. The story of Christianity demonstrates at each point what new challenges and opportunities face the church, and how Christians struggled with the various options open to them, thereby shaping the future direction of the church. So, that's not all it says, but I do know the introduction was very good. And I had no intention of highlighting as much as I did, but I underlined and highlighted, and it just speaks to you. And then I'll tell you about St. Augustine's Confessions. It says, "You called and cried out loud and shattered my deafness. You were radiant and resplendent. You put to flight my blindness. You were fragrant, and I drew in my breath, and now pant after you. I tasted you, and I feel but hunger and thirst for you. You touched me, and I am set on fire to attain the peace which is yours." In this new translation, that was the quote at the top. In this new translation, the brilliant and impassioned descriptions of Augustine's colorful early life are conveyed to the English reader with accuracy and art. Augustine tells of his wrestlings to master himself, his rare ascent from a humble Algerian farm to the edge of the corridors of high power at the imperial court of Milan, and his renunciation of secular ambition and marriage as he recovered the faith that his mother had taught him. It was in a Milan garden that Augustine finally achieved the active will to Christian conversion, which he compared to a lazy man in bed finally deciding it is time to get up and face the day. So, yeah. I'm looking forward to that. All right, so Chris and I will link her below, for February, we are reading The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton, and I am being rather slow about it. She says she is too, but she's a lot farther ahead than I am. But we've decided just to kind of roll into March with this one. So it might take me a little bit of March to get through this. I am going to start, I'm going to leave it out here by on my desk because I seem to read when I'm out here, which is why it's out here now. But this is about Nell, and Nell was taken in by a couple after she was left on, I'm going to say a pier, like a dock, and he was the dock master. So it's the story of her life and other people too that are connected to her. So yes, that's my next one. And we do have a March read after we finish The Forgotten Garden. We are going to be reading The Oath by Frank Peretti. I got this at Goodwill, and look how good that looks. It is just like nobody even read it. I mean, why? Gorgeous cover. So anyway, I did get it at Goodwill for $2.50, and it might have been a half off it. I don't know. But that cover, spooky. All right, so it is a chunker, but sometimes I tend to read these a little faster because they're a little fillery. It says, an ancient sin, an ancient oath, a town with a deadly secret. Something sinister is at work in Hyde Park, an isolated old mining town in the mountains of the Pacific Northwest. Let me stop. I'm sorry I'm all nasally and stuff. Yeah, that's just how I woke up, and I need to get this video up for you all. Okay, so back to Hyde Park and that's found in the mountains of the Pacific Northwest. Something evil. Under the cover of darkness, it strikes without warning, taking life in the most chilling and savage fashion. The latest victim, nature photographer Cliff Benson, was brutally killed while camping in the mountains. His wife Evelyn, who was found bloody and half-crazed on a logging road, now lies dazed in a local hospital bed with only vague recollections of the terrifying attack. With little hard evidence to go on, Sheriff Les Collins closes the case, chalking it up to the work of a rogue bear, just like so many other unsolvable deaths and disappearances that have plagued Hyde River over the years. But wildlife biologist Steve Benson isn't convinced. He knows bears. And he knows that his brother, a seasoned woodsman like himself, would have taken every precaution. Refusing to let the matter drop, Steve begins his own investigation. Sheriff's Deputy Tracy Ellis isn't convinced either. She grew up in Hyde River, a town haunted by bizarre incidents. She's also seen enough things swept under the rug by her boss to know that something's amiss. She joins Steve in his search for the truth. But the harder Steve presses the townsfolk for information, the more they close ranks, as if sworn to secrecy. All except for Levi Cobb, an aging mechanic who talks to himself. Considered the town crazy man, Levi rants and raves about old superstitions and folk tales to anyone who will listen. It is only when Steve gains access to the old letters and diaries of the town's forefathers that he begins to peel away the layers of mystery surrounding Hyde Park. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I've read quite a bit of that. And so anyway, that is our March buddy read. And so anyway, and then I have Books Love, everyone's book club picks that Jenna from Books Love Jenna runs, and we are reading The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie by Muriel Spark, and The Sisters, The Saga of the Mitford Family by Mary S. Lovell. And if you want to know about these books, she always gives synopses. She tells about them on her channel. So I'll link her down below. There are also 2 readathons that I am considering taking part in, and I left that other book up there. I'll be right back. Okay, so there are also 2 readathons that I would like to take part in. One I actually signed up for. That one is called the Irish Readathon. So it is the Irish Readathon 2026, and if I would have read the overview, it says hosted by Words of Clover. Oh, and Leanne Rose. Okay, so there are 2. So the first prompt, and there are 6 prompts, I think, but I'm only going to show you my books for 3 because I'm not sure I'm going to be able to read more than that if I even get to all 3 of these. It says, read a book with a green cover. My picture on Storygraph is not green, but the book I ordered is. And it is Maeve Binchy's Circle of Friends. It says, The Circle. It began with Benny Hogan and Eve Malone growing up inseparable in the village of Knocklin. Benny, the only child yearning to break free from her adoring parents. Eve, the orphaned offspring of a convent handyman and a rebellious blue blood abandoned by her mother's wealthy family to be raised by nuns. Eve and Benny, they knew the sins and secrets behind every villager's lace curtains except their own. The Circle. It widened in Dublin, the university where Benny and Eve met beautiful Nan Mahone and Jack Foley, a doctor's handsome son. But heartbreak and betrayal would bring the worlds of Knocklin and Dublin into explosive collision. Long hidden lies would emerge to test the meaning of love and the strength of ties held within the fragile gold bands of a circle of friends. So I think that'll be really good. And yeah, it's pretty easy to read font. And then the next one is read a book by an Irish author who has a new book out in 2026. Now I'm told that Tana, I don't know how you say that, has one coming out. So I picked this book up, the audiobook, and started listening to it, and then put it back down because I had to go back to the library. So went ahead and ordered it because I was really enjoying it, and it is like a thriller mystery, and it's called In the Woods. As dusk approaches a small Dublin suburb in the summer of 1984, mothers begin to call their children home. But on this warm evening, 3 children do not return from the dark and silent woods. When the police arrive, they find only one of the children gripping a tree trunk in terror, wearing blood-filled sneakers and unable to recall a single detail of the previous hours. 20 years later, the found boy, Rob Ryan, is a detective on the Dublin murder squad and keeps his past a secret. But when a 12-year-old girl is found murdered in the same woods, he and Detective Cassie Maddox, his partner and closest friend, find themselves investigating a case chillingly similar to the previous unsolved mystery. So, that'll be it. And then the next one, read a book starting with one of the letters in Ireland, Ireland. So I'm going to read An Irish Country Doctor. Now I have started this. I actually got to page 58. Probably will start over. But this is by Patrick Taylor, and I did read An Irish Country Christmas and just adored it. So this says, Barry Laverty, MB, can barely find the Northern Ireland village of Ballybuckalbow, whatever, on a map when he first sets out to seek gainful employment there. But Barry jumps at the chance to secure a position as an assistant in a small rural practice, at least until he meets Dr. Fingal Flattery O'Reilly. The older physician has his own way of doing things. At first, Barry can't decide if the pugnacious O'Reilly is the biggest charlatan he has ever met or the best teacher he could ever hope for. Through O'Reilly, Barry soon gets to know all of the village's colorful and endearing residents and a host of other eccentric characters who make every day an education for the inexperienced young doctor. So, I know that window being open is kind of a little much. And then there are a couple more. The other prompts are read an Irish book with a great first line, and I have picked two. One of them was Sebastian Barry's The Secret Scripture, and the other one was Brooklyn. I don't know how you say the author's name. Tobin. I don't know. The picture's up here. And it's part of a series. Okay, and then it says read an Irish book about family, and I have read the first book in this series, so I thought, well, I could read the second book, and it's Murder and an Irish Wedding by Carleen O'Connor. And then there's listen to an Irish book on audiobook, and I chose This Is Happiness, but I would try to make sure that I was following along because I missed a lot and that would be a reread, because I missed a lot when I read it with Books Love Everyone Book Club. So then there's also Middle Grade March, and it's hosted by 3 ladies on BookTube. Well, I think 2 of them are on BookTube and 1 is on Instagram. The only one I really follow is Books and Jam. So I will link them down below. I will find out who hosts it. And the main one I would like to get to is Wildwood, because it's on my 26 in 2026. This is written by Colin Malloy and illustrated by Carson Ellis. And it says, Prue McKeel's life is ordinary. That is, until her brother is abducted by a murder of crows and taken to the impassable wilderness, a dense, tangled forest on the edge of Portland. No one's ever gone in, or at least returned to tell of it. So begins an adventure that will take Prue and her friend Curtis deep into the impassable wilderness. There they uncover a secret world in the midst of violent upheaval, a world full of warring creatures, peaceable mystics, and powerful figures with the darkest intentions. And what begins as a rescue mission becomes something much greater as the 2 friends find themselves entwined in a struggle for the very freedom of this wilderness, a wilderness the locals call Wildwood. And I was flipping through, let me see, what's this one on? Isn't it beautiful? Because I mean, with an illustrator, you know, you're going to have illustrations. So I really want to get to that one. I have Anne of the Island, but I don't know if Anne, the third one in the Anne books, in the Anne series, can be considered middle grade. I have this one that I'd like to read through, and so I can get it up there to the school for my kids. It's called The Cartoonist Club. It's by Raina Telgemeier and Scott McCloud, and it's just a graphic novel. After Wildwood, I really want to pick up Little House in the Big Woods by Laura Ingalls Wilder and begin this. And of course it has illustrations. So I'm not sure how many of those I'm going to get to. I also had people give me numbers. And so now I will put in my unwrapping books. All right, 78 was taken. So Mom picked a couple of numbers for me. So now I have 2, 4, 6 to unwrap. Okay, so here is 77. Nice, slim little package. And I think I know what it is. I'm not going to say. Oh, no, it's not. It's not what I thought. Perfect for this month coming up. It's Ramona Quimby, age 8. Oh, Ramona. Oh. I love Ramona. This is by Beverly Cleary. Ramona's job is to be nice to fussy Mrs. Kemp, who watches her while her mother works. If Mrs. Quimby didn't work, Mr. Quimby couldn't return to college. On top of all that, 3rd grade isn't turning out as Ramona expected. Danny the yard ape teases her, and on one horrible day, she throws up at school. Being 8 isn't easy, but it's never dull. I loved Ramona. All right, here's number 10. 77 was one of my choices that one of my friends at school picked. 10 was one that another one picked, and this is kind of thick. I was looking at it last night thinking, she did me dirty. It's hardback. I think it probably is a book of the month. I hope it's not. The Mayor of Maxwell Street by Avery Cunningham. I have started this one. I only made it to 34, so let me read this to you. The year is 1921, and America is burning. A fire of vice and virtue rages on every shore, and Chicago is its beating heart. Nellie Sawyer is the daughter of the wealthiest, I'm going to say black man, in America, whose affluence catapulted his family to the heights of black society. After the unexpected death of her only brother, Nellie becomes the premier debutante overnight. But Nellie has aspirations beyond society influence and marriage. For the past year, she has worked undercover as an investigative journalist, sharing the achievements and tribulations of everyday black people living in the shadow of Jim Crow. Her latest assignment thrusts her into the den of a dangerous vice lord, the so-called mayor of Maxwell Street. Born in rural Alabama to a murdered biracial couple, Jay Shorey knows firsthand what it means to be denied a chance at the American dream. When a tragic turn of fate gave Jay a rare path out, he took it without question. He washed up on Chicago's storied shores and forged his own way to the top of the city's underworld, running Chicago's swankiest speakeasy, where the rich and famous rub elbows with gangsters and politicians alike. When Nellie's and Jay's paths cross, she recruits him to help expose the mayor and bring about lasting change to a corrupt city. But Jay also introduces a whole new world to Nellie, one where her horizons can extend beyond the confines of her ivory tower. Trapped between the monolith of Jim Crow, the inflexible world of the black upper class, and the violence of Prohibition-era Chicago, Jay and Nellie work together and stoke the flames of a love worth fighting for. The Mayor of Maxwell Street, by Avery Cunningham. Isn't that beautiful? Looks like a Christmas book on the cover, green and red. I don't want to lose my place. Okay. All right, so I had 51 as well. Nice, pretty paper. Pretty paper. Pretty ribbon. I think I probably wrapped this one. I like lots of tape. Excuse me, sorry about that. Oh, this one has been on my TBR so many times. The Helsinki Affair by Anna Petoniak. All right. It's the case of Amanda's lifetime, but solving it may require her to betray another spy who just happens to be her father. Spying is a family business. Amanda Cole is a brilliant young CIA officer following in the footsteps of her father, Charlie Cole, who was a spy during the Cold War. It takes grit to succeed in this male-dominated world, but one hot summer day, when a Russian defector walks into her post, Amanda is given the ultimate chance to prove herself. The defector warns of the imminent assassination of a U.S. senator. Though Amanda takes the warning seriously, her superiors don't. 24 hours later, the senator is dead, and the assassination is just beginning. I'm going to stop there. So, The Helsinki Affair by Anna Petoniak. Number 35. It's a paperback. I wonder if it's Lee Child. I don't think it is. No, it is Dean Koontz. What the Night Knows. Okay. In the late summer of a long ago year, Alton Turner Blackwood brutally murdered 4 families. His savage spree ended only when he himself was killed by the last survivor of the last family, a 14-year-old boy. Half a continent away and 2 decades later, someone is murdering families again, recreating in detail Blackwood's crimes. Homicide detective John Calvino is certain that his own family, his wife and 3 children, will be targets, just as his parents and his sisters were victims on that distant night when he was 14 and killed their slayer. As a detective, John is a man of reason who deals in cold facts, but an extraordinary experience convinces him that sometimes death is not a one-way journey, that sometimes the dead return. Okay, and then when I found out I didn't have the 78, I told my mom to pick a number. So she picked 7, of course. 7 is her number. So, oh boy. I have a feeling this one is going to be something I might not want. So, Valentine by Elizabeth Wetmore. It's February 1976, and Odessa, Texas stands on the cusp of the next great oil boom. While the townsmen embrace the coming prosperity, its women intimately know and fear the violence that always seems to follow. In the early hours of the morning after Valentine's Day, 14-year-old Gloria Ramirez appears on the front porch of Mary Rose Whitehead's ranch house, broken and barely alive after a vicious attack in a nearby oil field. This act of brutality is tried in the churches and barrooms of Odessa before it can reach a court of law. When justice is evasive, the stage is set for a showdown with potentially devastating consequences. All right, last one. I told her give me another one. She's gonna give me 3, and I said, you got 107 numbers to choose from, and you're going to give me 1-digit numbers. So she picked 82, which is another hardback book. And then she said, where are you at? Oh, The Magnolia Palace by Fiona Davis. Oh, it started this one too. 8 months since losing her mother in the Spanish flu outbreak of 1919, 21-year-old Lillian Carter's life has completely fallen apart. For the past 6 years, under the moniker Angelica, Lillian was one of the most sought-after artist models in New York City, with statues based on her figure gracing landmarks from the Plaza Hotel to the Brooklyn Bridge. But with her mother gone, a grieving Lillian is rudderless and desperate. The work has dried up, and a looming scandal has left her entirely without a safe haven. So when she stumbles upon an employment opportunity at the Frick Mansion, a building that ironically bears her own visage, Lillian jumps at the chance. But the longer she works as a private secretary to the imperious and demanding Helen Frick, the daughter and heiress of industrialist and art patron Henry Clay Frick, the more deeply her life gets intertwined with that of the family, pulling her into a tangled web of romantic trysts, stolen jewels, and family drama that runs so deep the stakes just may be life or death. Nearly 50 years later, mod English model Veronica Weber has her own chance to make her career with it, and with it earn the money she needs to support her family back home, within the walls of the former Frick residence, now converted into one of New York City's most impressive museums. But when she, along with a charming intern budding art curator named Joshua, is dismissed from the Vogue shoot taking place at the Frick Collection, she chances upon a series of hidden messages in the museum. Messages that will lead her and Joshua on a hunt that could not only solve Veronica's financial woes, but could finally reveal the truth behind the decades-old murder in the infamous Frick family. Okay. So that is my March TBR pile of possibilities, because we know I'm not reading all of those. And I have my priorities. So if you enjoyed this somewhat chaotic video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you want to see more from me, hit that subscribe button down below. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.